Well, hi there, everybody. This is Mike Apfelberg with the United Way of Greater Nashua, and I want to welcome you back to a new episode of Living United with Nashua Business. You know, this television show is all about the businesses in our community that give back and make a difference in philanthropy and make a difference in uplifting our community. So today I'm very excited to have with me one of our partners who's been a partner of ours for a long time, Carl French with C4 Design. Carl, it is good to see you.
Likewise, good to see you.
And good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And I will say, you are the man who's behind the designs and has an award-winning mustache to boot.
Thank you.
So C4 Design, I'd like to just talk a little bit about, you're a graphic designer. You work with clients who are looking to, really, I think, expand their reach, expand their brand, make themselves more memorable through design, what you can bring to the table. So I want to talk a little bit about that, how you approach the design process. So tell us a little bit about some of your clients and some of the projects that are typical for you, things that you work on.
Sure. So one of the companies I work with is a New England luxury realtor, and I produce all of their print ads.
So like a high-end
luxury realty.
Realtor, okay.
Yep. So multi-million-dollar homes on average, and those homes don't always sell overnight, so they need some kind of marketing program behind them, and I facilitate their designing and production of those advertisements and reaching out to the publishers and getting those placed where they are most appropriate and hopefully most memorable to the clients that are looking to sell or looking to buy.
And is that a pretty typical kind of a client for you?
It's one of the types, yeah. So my background, varied as it is in this industry, I've been in it for almost 30 years now. And
you come out of the pre-press side of the industry, right?
As do you.
Kind of.
Right?
I come more out of the ink on paper
sure.
side. So I was the dirty side of the business.
Sure. When I discovered this field, back in the day, there were such things called pre-press houses in which designers would bring their files in, and collectively we would produce the products that they would then need to go to the printer with.
Yeah.
At the time, those machines that produced those films and paper and whatnot that they used weren't exactly cheap. So not many of the printers had them in-house, especially the smaller ones. So they would bring the files in overnight, and people like myself would take them and generally fix them, because designers can be great at creating a lovely piece, but not always the technical aspect behind the software to make sure that the printer has what it needs to make the file look correct in print.
So it might not look great when it gets to, to the final production.
Correct. We would create the traps and bleeds and all those things I'm sure you're familiar with.
Right. I am. Nobody else is, but that's okay.
Right. Yes.
So I think that's really great. You have this design background with a production orientation, which means that, your customers' aspirations will actually be realized when it goes to press. And how much of the work that you do would you say ends up as ink on paper versus sort of digital, like the internet, that type of thing?
Sure. Most of what I do is print ink on paper.
Okay.
Yes. Probably 70-30. There's still a digital aspect. You'll find that many clients now have intake forms that they no longer want to have faxed back to them. So they'll create a form and we'll add form fields to it so that it can just be emailed much more simply back to them, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So when a customer comes along and you're trying to do some design work for them, how is it that you approach getting in their head? Because
it's a great question.
Because, well, if you think about it, we all have different opinions about how we want to be known in the world. And that's what your job is, to help us to be known in the world. And I think that must drive you crazy. I know that would drive me crazy because, as many people as there are there different opinions about what is good or bad design work. So how do you approach that?
So an initial meeting, obviously I try and get as much information as I can out of them, what colors they like, what their end result aim is for the product that we're working on. A little bit of history of theirs, where are they coming from? Why is this important to them? And then I just try and pull absolutely as much information out of them as I can. I will create a design or 2 or 3 for them, and we will go back and forth and refine that. I like this part of that one, and maybe this part of that one, and we'll kind of start to put them together and get a better sense as we work through the project to really nail down their aim.
And does it always work?
No.
I know the answer to that question.
It does not. There have been clients that have just not been happy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And sometimes it's them going through the process to realize that their vision wasn't realistic.
Right.
Or what they thought they wanted is now different. So that happens. There are people out there that have very strong opinions. And I think those are where the challenges become interesting.
Right, of course.
It's a harder challenge, but it also makes me dig in more and really try and get to know where they're going, where they're coming from, and why.
So what would be a small project for you? Like, what's the smallest size project that makes sense for you at C4 Design?
Sure. So I think those form fields are pretty small projects, right?
A logo?
Logo's a medium-sized project. That's a nice project because there's a lot more creativity there typically.
Yeah.
I've got a client right now that wants to start a new business, but they have a logo in mind already. So they've come to me with kind of, this is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And they'll allow me to then do my magic and create what I think their vision is.
Right.
While also giving them the version that they came up with as well and refine that for them.
Well, I think, I'm going to say recently you did a project with us for our Small Business United program and designing the logo for that program, which we love. But we had no idea what we wanted. And it was basically, I think the direction we gave you was, it's a program which encourages small business philanthropy and community engagement. And there's some brand standards from United Way in terms of fonts and colors. And that's about all I was able to give you. Is that typical, or do you often get more than that?
It varies, but that's not atypical, certainly. Well,
I felt terrible.
No.
But your designs were great, and we had give us a couple of choices, and then we were able to narrow in on it.
We kind of refine it as we go through, and I get a better sense of what direction you're looking for. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. What about the medium? You do everything on the computer these days, or do you start out with sketching?
I start sketching. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's I do a fair amount of industry learning as well. I try and stay up to date with, as long as I've been in the industry, I still think there are things to learn.
Yeah, of course.
And everybody says start with sketching. It just, little sketches, quick, just little things, and then move on to another one, and then another one, and then another one, get several iterations going, and then come back and refine it, maybe put it down for a day or so, and come back and look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And
So if a customer was looking for a graphic designer, somebody to work with, what are some of the things that they would, how would you know, what would you ask if you were interviewing potential designers to become, a partner with you? What are some of the questions somebody like I should ask when choosing a designer? How should I know who I want to work with?
That's a challenge for anybody, in many industries, not just mine, but what's their history? What kind of background do they have? I can tell you there are many designers out there without the experience to build something that is going to last.
Yeah.
What kind of file are they going to provide you? Can the file be separated into its master colors easily? Does the client want to put this on a t-shirt, or do they want to get it embroidered? So designing the file for those formats from the get-go is going to make it a lot easier for the client in the long run, right?
Okay. And then probably you have a portfolio that you would lay out with a customer that
Correct.
would show different types of projects that you have worked on.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so what would be a really big project?
A big project would be something like a catalog.
Okay.
Or a trade show booth. Right, we're going to provide multiple graphics and multiple signage pieces as a coordinated, cohesive stamp.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess let's see. Other questions I wanted to ask is, so what kind of got you into this business? Because that's really always, I think it's really fascinating. Sometimes people, they fall into it and they're like, oh, I don't know, I was a dishwasher, I hated that, so I became a graphic designer. I don't imagine that's the case here,
No,
right?
but yeah. So my mom was in the interior design and architectural fields,
so
and
this is
that
in the blood a little
fascinated
bit.
me. My grandfather before her was very creative in multiple aspects, both visual and digital. And I started in the architecture field as a model maker. And started at the ground and worked in that for several years and found that my passion wasn't buildings. My heart wasn't there where I had thought it might be. One day, I noticed a young woman on a computer take a paragraph, I believe in Microsoft Word, and move it. And it hit me like a light bulb that this is the future. And we're talking 1990, so this is very early Macintosh era, very early. And I was unfortunate enough to be in a motorcycle accident on my way to work one morning, and then was laid up for 6 months. And a friend of mine had a cheap Apple computer that he sold me. And back then you had all the software on floppy disks, so I stole the software. And over that 6 months, I taught myself all the applications that he had. And there were some graphic ones. Photoshop was still in its infancy then.
Yeah, Quark Express probably.
Even before Quark Express, we had PageMaker.
Yeah, I remember PageMaker.
Yep. So we started there, and there were a couple of creative files applications as well. So really kind of just taught myself over that 6 months as much as I could. I came back to a job that was no longer available to me. They had found somebody in my stead in the 6 months that I was gone, and they said, "Thank you, but you can go now."
Well, sometimes things happen for a reason.
Absolutely. And then I started back at a Kinko's in their desktop publishing department. And worked my way up there pretty quickly. And then went back to school for industrial design and thought that would be a very creative outlet for me. But while working there, I then went to work for the Service Bureau that we were talking about earlier. And they were a very large outfit, one of the biggest in the Northeast. So I had a variety of options available to me there. They also did some instructions for some of the applications. So I took a host of those classes to get myself up to better standards for what we needed to do in the shop. So I really kind of started early and young as in this business.
Well, you've been there through some of the formative years, especially with the electronic, desktop publishing revolution.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I remember when I first started in the printing industry here in New England, I was the customer, and one of my vendors took me through their pre-press department, which was all a bunch of light tables, where there were people who were called strippers.
Yes.
Which our audience probably doesn't know what that means. And, about a year and a half later, I came back and this whole department had been replaced by like 2 computers. And a big old empty room.
Yes.
And then a lot of people were displaced by that. A lot of old timers who retired and said, this is not for me.
Yes. Technology certainly has made its advances in this industry over the years, and in the 30 years that I've seen it, I came in at the very tail end of that kind of progression, but our outfit still had people in-house that would do that,
Absolutely. That's great. So you are also involved a lot in the community as well, and I want to talk a little bit about that too. I'm always really interested when talking with small businesses in particular about what is kind of the business proposition for philanthropy. Why would somebody like yourself in a small business, and in any business really, get involved with giving back to the community? not just because it feels like the right thing to do, but they're also, generally speaking, should be also a beneficial reason for you as well. So what are some of the things that you get involved with? We can, of course, talk about sleeping in a box with United Way if you want, but some of the other things that maybe folks don't know about.
Sure. So I've got 3 little girls.
Yeah.
And I live in Merrimack, and in our community, we have what's called a school budget committee. So for my 3 little girls coming up through the school system, I volunteer every year on the school budget committee to ensure that our taxes are being used for the appropriate purposes within our school system. So that's a pretty big benefit, I think, of being in our community and being able to reach in a small way, into the community and try and have a positive effect. I did not realize that the budget committee, I didn't realize that the budget committee wasn't an elected position. It is not. Well, it is an elected position, but we it's still volunteer.
So you're elected?
Yes.
So you're an elected official?
Technically.
Well, did somebody vote for you?
They did.
Well, then you're an elected official. Because I was on the Brookline, when we lived in Brookline, I was on the finance committee. And that was also the same thing on the city side, on the town side, not on the school side. And you enjoy that?
I do. I enjoy, we're one of the few that in the state that we reach out to each of the department heads and we have a one-to-one meeting with them for an hour or two and go through the budget line by line almost and see where the money's going, why. Do they have any additional needs? Is there any place that they can trim the fat?
Of course.
And you have a positive outlook at it. They come with a pretty positive, healthy mental attitude about what they do, and you kind of dig down a little bit and try and come up with the best plan for the town.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I love that. So, and obviously, that also helps you to establish yourself in the community with a reputation.
Yes.
And it's not business 101 networking kind of stuff, but you do become known as, Carl, the graphic designer, who's also Carl, the guy who gives back to his community.
Yes. And I think that's important in any community, just to be involved in some small way.
Yeah.
There are other roles that would be a little bit more in front of the people's eyes. I don't think we have very many people that come to the budget committee meetings.
Well, it's not always the most exciting meeting.
No, it's not.
I know my finance committee at United Way. I love them. They're awesome. But it's a different type of person who participates and gets involved in that way.
Right.
Very important.
Yes. So I do that for my town. I think that's important for me with the amount of children that I have, I think.
Yeah.
It feels good to give back. There's the feel-good part of that, too.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah. You're also involved with teaching motorcycle safety, right?
I do, yes. And I've been doing that for 13 years now, and that's a pretty incredible, again, personally incredible feeling to have that you've taken somebody over the course of 2 days that may have started from absolute scratch, and in 2 days they're up and riding and have some level of confidence.
Yeah.
To be able to perform these basic maneuvers and understand the safety behind it. Where
do you do your classes?
So I actually teach for the state of Massachusetts.
Oh, you're in Massachusetts,
Yep.
Okay.
We're right on the line with Tingsboro behind the Pheasant Lane Mall.
Yeah.
There's a Tingsboro Municipal parking lot behind Smoky Bones.
Because when I got my motorcycle license, it was in New Hampshire with the same organization, I think.
It is, yes.
And that's how I got my license, and which was really, I think, the best way to learn how to ride a bike, because it was with instructors who were first and foremost going to teach you how to ride safely.
Yes. So for me, it started off as an extra source of income.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's become much more of a reaching out to somebody, and with as many issues as we have today in society as anxiety and other background issues that people don't tell you about when they come in.
Right.
But to be able to, within a couple hours, get to know somebody on that level and see some of their issues and work with them and get them through some of these challenges, because some of these challenges on riding are pretty paramount.
Right.
And pretty steep. So it's kind of a steep learning curve, and we have to move at a certain pace to keep the whole class moving along and get them through the 2-day course, and to be able to surmount those obstacles for them and be a part of it is really rewarding.
That's so you've taken, what was for you really a horrible experience with your accident, and obviously made that something which is a personal mission for you.
Yes.
Okay. Good. And so other things that you do besides work and your two giving back, you must have some hobbies, I imagine.
I've got a few. We share one.
Yes, we do. Sailing.
Sailing.
So you are you're a new sailor.
I've been sailing for many years. I took a long-term hiatus.
Okay. You're a returning sailor.
Yes.
Okay. You have a Hobie cat. You race it.
I do.
It's amazing.
It is amazing feeling of getting out there with another person on a tiny little boat and going as fast as you can and hanging yourself off the side.
It's pretty scary.
It is a little scary, yes. But there's a great fleet down in Rhode Island that I run with, and those guys are amazing, and women. They're just truly compassionate and deeply in tune with the community. So it's interesting. I'm sure you're aware that you get to meet some of these people, and it's like one big happy family. They all love this sport, and they're trying to promote it in some small way.
Well, there's a Hobie race I'm sure you know about that runs all the way up and down the coast from Florida up to New England.
I'm not sure what that's called, but yes.
It's over 1,000 miles, and I don't know that they actually still have the race. They used to.
I haven't heard of it in a while.
But it was always a dream of mine to do that. And it's all Hobie. It was all Hobie 16s that did that.
Okay.
So that's something maybe someday, right?
Yes.
Not for me. I've graduated to old man boats at this point.
Well, one of the reasons I went with the Hobie 16 is that I have these young children, and I thought my passion may be able to be passed down to them in some small way. However, my first experience did not go so well.
Well, I haven't been able to pass my sailing passion on to my daughter or my wife. I'm hopeful with my grandson, so I'm plotting out what my next boat will be. So it's extraordinarily user-friendly, simple design, it's stable, so it doesn't scare him away. Because I seem to have scared everybody away from the sport, whoever gets on a boat with me, and that's just the way it goes. So the Hobie's a good one, though.
Yeah.
And so, Carl, what's next for you at C4 Design? What are the next kinds of projects that you're looking to get into? Anything challenging up your sleeve?
Yes. So I've really just started to get into the email marketing side of the business. I've set up an account recently, actually just last week, and have started sending out emails. So that's a new part of the business that I'm hoping to grow. I think I may have a potential client already, but I don't want to jump in too quick with a client as I'm still fairly new at this.
Right. Now, when you say email marketing, you mean designing for email marketing or marketing yourself through email?
Both. So there are many companies out there. I'm sure you know a few of the names.
Sure. Like Constant Contact or something like that. Okay,
exactly.
Right.
That kind of thing where I can set up for clients their own marketing campaign and then do the design, have it input into Constant Contact and run through their own email lists, and then manage that process for them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's actually a fantastic idea. It's really easy to do bad email.
It is.
And I'm an
That's
expert
why
at that.
Spam filters have gotten very good.
Yes, I'm an expert in this process of bad emails. That's a great idea. I love that.
Thank you.
And so would you use what specific design tools to do that, or templates, or how would that work?
So they've got templates set up for you, which is wonderful. However, there's still that digital animation aspect, which I can help with. We've got another partner of ours that I just helped do a web banner, an animated web banner for. So that kind of thing, I think, is really going to help. Any kind of video or motion is really where the industry is leading. Instagram apparently is going to go full video within the next year or so.
I can't figure out how to use Instagram.
Yep.
I feel really embarrassed. My daughter has tried to teach me, and I don't get it. And it's not like I know how other social media works. Instagram, somehow the user interface just doesn't work for me. I don't know.
The user interface is a bit of a challenge. I'll give you that. It's not intuitive.
It should be though, because
it should be.
because it's like it's really for the masses.
It took me a minute to challenge and get through kind of how it works. It is challenging.
Now, do you do any work with other nonprofits as well?
So I was doing some work with another agency. So for my background, I really like to focus on the children.
Okay.
Not just having my own and having that background, but even prior to that, I was Boston-based or just outside Boston for a while, and I would work with the Home for Little Wanderers.
Oh, sure.
A huge organization that's trying to place homeless children. And that strikes a chord with me. You know, children shouldn't have to go through that.
Yeah, this is true.
And that's just always struck a chord with me. So to focus on some kind of child-centric or helping the kids that I think are the most in need. So there's Mission Life up in Manchester that I had done some work with, another former partner of ours.
Sure.
Anywhere where I can see that the kids kind of need a hand kind of pulls at my heartstrings.
Right, right. And are there clients that you have as well in the nonprofit sector?
Not lately, no. So I did the Home for Little Wanderers in the Boston area for many years, and I was working with Mission Life for a little while, and I haven't had any new clients come through that are nonprofit.
Well, I can say any nonprofit.
Reached out with a couple of yours that have come through over the ages and touched base with them.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, I could tell you any nonprofit that reaches out to me and says, we need some graphic design work. That's a no-brainer because,
thank you.
You know, we appreciate the work you do, and we appreciate you as a partner in the community as well. Listen, Carl, we're just about out of time. I did want to say thank you. I do have a hat for you.
Fantastic.
Nobody leaves the United Way show without a gift, and it's never very good.
It's a lovely hat, though.
So that's for you.
Thank you.
And Carl,
I do want to pride.
Thank you so much for what you do in the community, and thank you for just talking with us about graphic design. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.